The morning sun rose gently over the small town of Maplewood. Birds sang softly, and the street slowly came alive with the sound of cars, laughter, and school bells. In the middle of this quiet town lived a teenage boy named Ethan Parker, a 15-year-old with messy brown hair and tired eyes that still carried hope. Every afternoon, after the school bell rang, while other kids ran home to play video games or hang out with friends, Ethan did something very different. He walked to the back of the school, pulled out an old black trash bag from his backpack, and started picking up trash. Plastic bottles, cans, and empty snack wrappers, anything people threw away, Ethan picked it up carefully and dropped it into his bag. At first, people thought he was doing it for extra cash. But when he didn't sell the bottles or cans, they started whispering. "Why does he do that? Maybe he's crazy," one kid said. Another laughed, "Maybe he just likes trash." Soon, the nicknames started Trash Boy. Ethan heard them. Every word. But he never answered back. He just smiled quietly and kept going. His hands were dirty, but his heart was clean. Because behind that simple act of picking up trash was a story no one knew, a story that started with a promise. Ethan lived with his mother, Sarah Parker, in a small, run-down apartment on the edge of town. The building was old, with cracks on the walls and water stains on the ceiling. Every night, Sarah came home late from work, wearing the same old diner uniform, her feet swollen, and her eyes tired. Still, she always smiled when she saw Ethan waiting for her. "Hey, sweetheart," she would say softly, putting her hand on his cheek. "Dinner's ready," Ethan would answer with a proud grin. He always tried to help her, even if it was just heating up leftovers or folding the laundry. Sarah worked 3 shifts a day at Maggie's diner, serving coffee and pie to people who didn't even look her in the eye. She never complained, but Ethan could see the pain behind her smile. One night, Ethan woke up to the sound of his mother crying quietly in the kitchen. He peeked through the door. She sat at the table, holding a letter in her shaking hands, a rent notice. Tears rolled down her face. Ethan's heart broke. He walked over and wrapped his small arms around her. "Mom, please don't cry," he whispered. Sarah tried to smile through her tears. "It's okay, honey. I'll figure it out. I always do." But that night, something changed in Ethan. He looked at his mom and said in a serious voice, "Mom, one day, I'll buy you a house, a real house. A big one with white walls and a yard. You won't ever have to worry again. I promise." Sarah laughed softly, brushing his hair back. "That's sweet, Ethan. But promises like that take a lifetime." Ethan shook his head. "Then I'll start today." The next afternoon, while walking home from school, Ethan saw an old man picking up empty cans near the park. He was slow, his back bent, and his cart almost full. Ethan watched him for a moment, then something clicked in his mind. He went home, found an old garbage bag, and started collecting bottles himself. He didn't know exactly how it would help, but he knew he had to start somewhere. At first, it was just around his neighborhood. Then near the school. Then he began cleaning the park and the sidewalks too. People noticed, but not in a kind way. Kids from his class started mocking him loudly. "Hey, trash boy. Need some garbage for dinner." Maybe he's trying to be the king of trash. Ethan would pretend not to hear them, but deep down, it hurt. Some days he wanted to stop. But then he would think about his mom tired, smiling through her pain, and he would keep going. He made a small box in his room where he saved every dollar he earned from recycling. It wasn't much, a few coins, a few bills, but to him, it was the start of his dream. Every night, before going to bed, he looked at that box and whispered, "For you, Mom." One day after school, as he was cleaning near the park benches, a teacher named Mrs. Miller stopped him. "Ethan," she said kindly, "why do you do this every day? He looked up, wiping sweat from his forehead. Because if I don't, no one else will. Mrs. Miller smiled gently. That's very kind of you. But Ethan didn't tell her the full truth, that he wasn't just cleaning trash from the park, he was cleaning away the pain in his heart, one piece at a time. As days turned into months, Ethan's small act of kindness became part of the town's routine. People would see the boy with the trash bag and shake their heads, but some began to admire him quietly. He didn't know it yet, but his actions were planting seeds that would one day grow into something far bigger than he ever imagined. He just kept walking, every day, through the same streets, picking up the same trash, under the same sky, believing that one day, all this hard work would mean something. He didn't know how or when, but he believed it with his whole heart. And one day, it did. The days slowly turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Ethan's life followed the same rhythm: school, homework, and collecting trash after the final bell. Most of the students had stopped teasing him now. Maybe they were tired, or maybe they just got used to seeing him bent down near the sidewalks with his black bag and gloves. But Ethan didn't care what they thought. Every bottle he picked up meant a little more money for the small wooden box under his bed. He counted it every Sunday night: a few quarters, some crumpled bills. It wasn't much, but to him, it was a treasure chest filled with hope. At home, his mother, Sarah Parker, continued to work hard at the diner. She left before sunrise and returned long after sunset. Her eyes were tired, her back hurt, but she still managed to smile whenever she saw Ethan. "Hey, sweetheart," she'd say, walking in and hanging her apron on the hook. "How was school today?" Ethan would smile and lie, "Good, Mom. Everything's good." He never told her about the teasing, about the names, or about the kids who laughed behind his back. He didn't want her to worry. Sometimes, he'd hand her a few dollars. "Here, Mom. I helped Mr. Wilson clean his yard today." Sarah would smile proudly but shake her head. "Ethan, honey, you need to save that for yourself." "I am," he'd reply with a small grin. "Just saving it for something special." One evening, after a long day, Sarah sat on the couch rubbing her sore feet. Ethan quietly brought her a cup of tea. The room was dim, just the soft glow of a small lamp filled the space. She looked at him and said, "You know, Ethan, you remind me so much of your father." Ethan paused. He rarely heard her talk about his dad. Sarah smiled sadly. "When he was your age, he dreamed big too. He wanted to start his own business, but life didn't go as planned." Ethan didn't say anything. His father had left when Ethan was just 8 years old. The memory of that night was still clear: his mom crying by the door, the sound of a suitcase being dragged, and the echo of the words, "I can't do this anymore." That night had changed everything. Sarah sighed deeply. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I wish I could give you more." Ethan shook his head firmly. "You already gave me everything, Mom. You gave me love. That's more than enough." Sarah smiled through her tears and pulled him close. "You're a good boy, Ethan. Don't ever stop dreaming." And he didn't. Every day after that, he worked harder. He started helping neighbors clean their yards, washed cars on weekends, and saved every dollar he could find. His goal was simple: to build a better life for his mom. But sometimes, life doesn't reward hard work right away. One winter morning, Ethan woke up to the sound of his mom coughing badly. Her voice was weak, and she looked pale. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked. She tried to smile. "Just a little cold, honey." But that night, her fever rose, and she could barely stand. Ethan didn't have money for a doctor. He sat by her bed all night, holding her hand and placing a wet towel on her forehead. "Please get better, Mom," he whispered again and again. The next morning, she woke up and smiled faintly. You didn't sleep, did you? Ethan shook his head. I didn't want to. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. You're too young to worry this much. Ethan replied softly, someone has to take care of you. The next week, Sarah returned to work, still weak but determined. Ethan started doing more helping at the diner after school, cleaning tables and washing dishes when the manager wasn't watching. One day, as he was wiping down the counter, a customer asked, "Aren't you too young to be working here?" Ethan smiled politely. "Maybe. But I like helping my mom." The man nodded kindly. "Good kid." That night, as they walked home together, Sarah said, "You don't have to do this, Ethan." "I know," he said, "but I want to." Time passed. The rent notices stopped coming, and things got a little better. But Ethan never forgot his promise to buy his mom a real home. Every time he passed by the nice houses on Oak Street, the ones with white fences and green lawns, he would stop for a moment. He'd imagine his mom sitting on a porch swing, drinking coffee and smiling under the morning sun. That image became his motivation. He taped a picture of a small white house on his bedroom wall. Under it, he wrote in big letters, "For Mom." Every time he felt tired, he looked at that picture. Every time someone made fun of him, he remembered that picture. It was his dream, his goal, his reason to keep going. Then, one afternoon, something unexpected happened. Ethan was cleaning near the park when he spotted a leather wallet lying on the ground. It looked expensive, dark brown, shiny, with golden initials on it. He picked it up, opened it, and saw a thick stack of cash and a driver's license. The name read, Thomas Gray. Ethan looked around. The park was empty. For a brief second, a thought crossed his mind: no one saw me. I could keep this. But then he shook his head. That wasn't who he was. He zipped up his jacket, gripped the wallet tightly, and started running. He didn't know where Mr. Gray lived, but he was determined to find him. He ran for miles through the cold evening air, asking strangers if they knew a man named Thomas Gray. Finally, an older lady pointed him to a house near the lake. Ethan knocked on the door, panting and shivering. When it opened, a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes looked down at him in surprise. "Mr. Gray?" Ethan asked, holding up the wallet. "You dropped this near the park." The man blinked, speechless. You ran all this way just to return it?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, sir. I thought you might need it." Mr. Gray smiled, impressed. "Most people wouldn't have done that." Ethan shrugged lightly. "Maybe. But my mom says honesty is the only thing no one can take from you." Mr. Gray looked at the boy curiously. "What's your name, son?" "Ethan." "Ethan Parker." Mr. Gray nodded slowly. "I think I'll remember that name." Thomas Gray stood in the doorway of his large house, staring at the young boy who had just returned his wallet. The cold evening wind blew softly, but Ethan stood there, breathing hard, holding the wallet tightly in his small hands. Mr. Gray was surprised not just because he got his wallet back, but because of how the boy looked. His jacket was worn out, his shoes muddy, and yet his eyes shone with honesty. "Come in, son," Mr. Gray said kindly. "You must be freezing." Ethan hesitated. "I'm okay, sir. I just wanted to make sure you got this back." But Mr. Gray insisted. "At least have some warm cocoa before you go." Ethan stepped inside slowly. The house was huge, polished floors, glowing lamps, and a fireplace that filled the room with warmth. It was the kind of house Ethan had only seen in magazines. As he sat by the fire, Mr. Gray handed him a mug of cocoa. "So, Ethan Parker," he said with a smile, "you ran all this way just to return my wallet." "Why?" Ethan looked down at his hands. "Because it wasn't mine, sir." Mr. Gray raised an eyebrow. You didn't even think of keeping it. Ethan shook his head quickly. No, sir. My mom says money comes and goes. But if you lose your honesty, you lose everything. Mr. Gray nodded slowly, impressed. Smart woman, your mother. Ethan smiled softly. She is. She works really hard. There was a short silence before Mr. Gray asked, where do you go to school? Maplewood High, Ethan replied. I'm in 10th grade. And you pick up trash after school? Mr. Gray asked curiously. Ethan's face turned red. Yes, sir. It's kind of my thing now. I clean up parks, sidewalks, whatever I can. Mr. Gray leaned forward. Why do you do it? Ethan hesitated for a moment, then said quietly, because I want to help my mom. I want to save money and buy her a house someday. Mr. Gray blinked, surprised. A house? At your age? Ethan nodded. It's a promise I made when I was little. I don't know how I'll do it yet, but I will. Mr. Gray smiled warmly, his eyes softening. You remind me of someone I used to know, he said. Someone who never gave up. Ethan didn't know what to say. He just looked around the grand house, wondering what kind of life this man had lived. After a while, Mr. Gray said, well, I owe you a reward for your honesty. There's quite a bit of cash in that wallet. Ethan shook his head quickly. No, sir. I don't need a reward. Mr. Gray looked surprised. You sure? Ethan nodded firmly. I didn't do it for money. I just wanted to do what's right. Mr. Gray studied the boy quietly for a moment. Then he smiled. You're a rare kind, Ethan Parker. The world needs more people like you. That evening, when Ethan got home, his mom was pacing near the window. Ethan. Where were you? I was so worried. I'm sorry, Mom, he said breathlessly. I found a wallet and went to return it. Sarah sighed, shaking her head with relief. You scared me, sweetheart. But I'm proud of you. Ethan smiled. He was a really nice man. His name's Mr. Thomas Gray. Sarah frowned slightly. Gray. That name sounds familiar. Maybe, Ethan said with a shrug. He said he'd remember me. The next few days passed like normal school, chores, and cleaning up trash. But one afternoon, something unexpected happened. A black car pulled up beside the park where Ethan was working. The window rolled down, and a familiar voice called out, Ethan Parker. It was Mr. Gray. Ethan wiped his hands on his jeans and walked over. Hi, sir. Is everything okay? Mr. Gray smiled. Everything's fine. I was just in the area and thought I'd stop by. Do you always do this after school? Ethan nodded. Yes, sir. Every day. Mr. Gray watched him for a while, noticing how carefully he worked. No shortcuts, no laziness. Every can and bottle was picked up as if it mattered. Finally, Mr. Gray said, you know, I own a small business, a recycling company on the edge of town. How would you like to come by this weekend and see how it works? Ethan's eyes widened. Really? You'd let me? Of course, Mr. Gray said. I think someone like you would appreciate it. That weekend, Ethan visited the company. It wasn't a huge factory, just a medium-sized facility with machines that sorted plastic, crushed metal, and recycled glass. Ethan was amazed. He watched everything with bright, curious eyes. Mr. Gray gave him a tour, explaining how waste could be turned into useful materials again. You see, Ethan, he said, most people look at trash and see something dirty. But smart people see opportunity. Ethan smiled. I guess that means I'm smart, then. Mr. Gray laughed heartily. I guess it does. As the tour ended, Mr. Gray looked at him and said, Ethan, I want to offer you something. It's not a job not yet, but I'd like you to come here on weekends and learn. Think of it as mentorship. Ethan was stunned. Really, sir? You'd do that for me? Mr. Gray nodded. You've earned it. You're honest, hardworking, and you remind me of myself when I was young. Ethan grinned from ear to ear. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. When he got home, he told his mom everything. Sarah listened, her eyes filling with tears of pride. Ethan, she said softly, maybe this is your chance. Maybe your hard work is finally being noticed. Ethan hugged her tightly. I think so too, Mom. I really think so. That night, as he lay in bed, Ethan looked at the picture of the White House on his wall. He whispered, we're getting closer, Mom. I can feel it. He didn't know then that this single act of kindness, returning a lost wallet, would open doors he never dreamed possible. The weekends at Gray Recycling Industries became the best part of Ethan's week. Every Saturday morning, while most kids slept in or played games, Ethan put on his old jacket, grabbed his notebook, and took the early bus across town. Mr. Thomas Gray always greeted him with the same warm smile. Good morning, Ethan. Ready to learn? Always, sir, Ethan would answer proudly. At first, Ethan just watched. He learned how machines sorted plastics, crushed metal cans, and melted glass. But soon, Mr. Gray started letting him help sweeping floors, labeling bins, and even organizing shipments. It wasn't glamorous work, but Ethan loved every minute of it. He asked questions, took notes, and stayed late to learn more. His curiosity amazed everyone at the plant. One day, one of the workers, a big man named Carl, laughed and said, "Kid, you work harder than most of us grown men." Ethan grinned. "I guess I just like learning how things work." Mr. Gray overheard and smiled quietly. He saw something special in Ethan, a spark he hadn't seen in years. At school, Ethan's grades started to improve too. Science became his favorite subject, especially environmental studies. He began dreaming bigger. One afternoon, he told his mom, "I want to study environmental engineering one day. I want to build things that help the planet, maybe even houses made from recycled materials." Sarah smiled proudly. "That sounds amazing, sweetheart. I know you'll do it." But deep down, Ethan knew it wouldn't be easy. College was expensive, and they barely had enough to pay rent. Still, he didn't let that stop him. Every dollar he earned from helping Mr. Gray went straight into his savings box, the one labeled for Mom. As months passed, Ethan became part of the recycling plant family. Mr. Gray treated him like a grandson. Sometimes they sat in the office, talking over sandwiches. Mr. Gray shared stories from his past, how he started with nothing, how people doubted him, and how he built his business from scratch. "You see, Ethan," he said one day, "people think success is about luck. But really, it's about showing up every day even when no one claps for you." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "That's kind of what I do when I clean trash after school." Mr. Gray smiled. "Exactly. That's why I believe in you." When Ethan turned 17, Mr. Gray called him into his office. On the desk sat a letter. "What's this?" Ethan asked. Mr. Gray smiled. "It's your recommendation letter for a scholarship. I've seen how hard you work. You deserve a chance to study without worrying about money." Ethan's eyes widened. "A scholarship? For college?" Mr. Gray nodded. "Yes. I talked to a few people at the local university. They'd be lucky to have someone like you." Ethan was speechless. "Sir, I don't know what to say." Mr. Gray stood up and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Say you'll keep working hard. That's all I want." Ethan grinned, tears forming in his eyes. "I promise." A few months later, Ethan got the news he had won the scholarship. When the letter arrived, Sarah read it 3 times just to believe it was real. Then she hugged her son so tightly that he could barely breathe. "I told you, Mom," Ethan whispered with a smile. "Dreams do come true." Sarah cried tears of joy. "I'm so proud of you, Ethan. Your dad may not be here, but I know he'd be proud too." Ethan smiled. "You're the only one I ever needed to make proud, Mom." College was a whole new world for Ethan. He studied hard, worked part-time, and kept in touch with Mr. Gray, who often checked on him like family. But life still tested him. There were nights when he had no money for food, days when he felt lost, and moments when he wondered if his dream was too big. Each time he felt weak, he would remember his promise, "Mom, one day I'll buy you a house." That promise became his strength. He graduated with honors in environmental engineering. His thesis, a project about building houses using recycled plastic, impressed his professors. One of them even said, "Ethan, your idea could change the future of housing." And soon, it did. With Mr. Gray's help, Ethan started a small company called Green Build Innovations. It began with only 3 people and 1 rented garage. Their goal was to create affordable, eco-friendly building materials made from waste. At first, no one believed in them. Investors said it was impossible. Construction companies ignored them. Ethan faced rejection after rejection. But he remembered Mr. Gray's words, "Show up every day, even when no one claps for you." So he did. He kept working, testing, and improving. Slowly, people began to notice. His company started getting attention for its smart, low-cost materials. Then one day, the city government offered him a small contract to build eco-friendly bus stops. It wasn't much, but it was a start. When the project was completed, newspapers wrote about the trash collector who built a green future. Ethan smiled when he saw that headline. The same kid who once picked up trash was now changing how people looked at it. Years passed quickly after that. Green Build grew from a small workshop into a full company. Investors came, projects expanded, and Ethan became one of the youngest successful entrepreneurs in the state. But even with all the fame, money, and attention, he never forgot his promise. His mother still lived in the same small apartment, working part-time at the diner. Ethan begged her to quit many times, but she always said, "I'll quit when you buy me that dream home you promised." Ethan smiled every time. "Then start packing, Mom," he'd say softly. "Because it's coming soon." The morning was bright and peaceful when Ethan drove through the quiet streets of Maplewood, again the same town where everything had begun. Years had passed, but he still remembered every corner, every park, every spot where he once bent down to pick up trash. Now, the same boy who used to walk with an old garbage bag was driving a sleek black car. But Ethan Parker hadn't changed inside. His heart was still humble, his smile still gentle, and his dreams still tied to one person, his mother. In the back seat of the car sat Sarah Parker, her eyes full of confusion. "Ethan," she said with a small laugh, "where are you taking me? You've been smiling since morning like you're hiding something." Ethan grinned. "You'll see, Mom. Just a few more minutes." Sarah shook her head. "You're acting mysterious. What's going on?" "You'll find out soon," he said softly, eyes shining. The car turned onto a quiet road lined with tall trees. Birds flew across the sky, and at the end of the lane stood a beautiful white house with a green lawn and a wide front porch. Sarah gasped. "Ethan, whose house is that?" Ethan parked the car slowly, turned to his mother, and smiled. "Yours." For a moment, Sarah didn't understand. She looked at the house again, then back at him. "Mine?" "Ethan, what do you mean?" Ethan took her hand gently. "Mom, do you remember what I promised you when I was little?" Sarah's eyes began to fill with tears. You promised to buy me a house one day. Ethan nodded, his own voice trembling. And today, I'm keeping that promise. He stepped out of the car and opened her door. Sarah stood there, frozen, tears rolling down her cheeks as she looked at the beautiful two-story home in front of her. The house had everything she ever dreamed of: a white fence, flower beds, a porch swing, and big windows that let sunlight flood inside. Ethan handed her the keys. "Welcome home, Mom." Sarah covered her mouth with her hands, unable to speak. For years, she had imagined this moment, but she never thought it would actually happen. They walked inside together. The house smelled of fresh paint and new beginnings. In the living room, Sarah stopped. On the wall hung a framed photo, a picture of her and Ethan from years ago, when he was still a little boy. Below it, a small wooden box sat on a shelf, the same box Ethan had once used to save money. She ran her fingers over it, smiling through her tears. "You kept this?" Ethan nodded. "It reminded me where I started. Every time I felt like giving up, I looked at that box and remembered why I began." Sarah turned to him and said in a soft voice, "Ethan, you've given me more than a house. You've given me hope." Ethan smiled. "No, Mom. You gave me hope first. You taught me how to keep going even when life gets hard. I just learned from you." They hugged tightly. For a long moment, they just stood there, mother and son, holding each other in the home built from love, sacrifice, and dreams. Later that evening, as the sun set behind the trees, Ethan and Sarah sat together on the porch swing. The golden light reflected in their eyes. Sarah looked at him proudly. "You know, Ethan, I still remember the day you came home covered in dirt, holding that trash bag. Everyone laughed at you, but you never stopped." Ethan smiled. "I guess that trash taught me more than school ever could." Sarah chuckled through her tears. "And look at you now, a successful man, running a company, helping the planet." Ethan looked at the sunset and said quietly, "It all started because of you, Mom. I just wanted to make your life easier. I wanted you to have the peace you always deserved." She reached for his hand. "You've done more than that, sweetheart. You've made me proud every single day." A week later, the town newspaper published a front-page story. "Local teen who collected trash now builds a cleaner future, buys dream home for his mother." People across Maplewood couldn't believe it was the same boy they once called Trash Boy. Kids from his old school read the article and shook their heads in disbelief. One of them said, "He really did it? He kept going when we didn't." Ethan didn't seek fame or applause. He never posted pictures or bragged online. His success was quiet, humble, and real, built from years of work that no one had seen. A few days later, Ethan visited Mr. Thomas Gray, who was now retired and living in a peaceful farmhouse outside town. When Ethan told him about the house, Mr. Gray smiled proudly. "I knew you'd make something of yourself, son." Ethan smiled back. "You were right, sir. Hard work never hides." Mr. Gray laughed softly. "You proved that better than anyone." Before leaving, Ethan hugged the old man. "Thank you for believing in me when I was just a kid with a trash bag." Mr. Gray smiled warmly. "Don't thank me, Ethan. You believed in yourself first. That's what made everything possible." That night, Ethan stood outside his mother's new home. The porch light glowed softly, and inside, he could see her sitting by the window, reading a book with a peaceful smile. The stars shone brightly above, and for the first time, Ethan felt something deep inside him, a quiet peace that only comes from keeping a promise. He whispered into the night, "We did it, Mom. We really did it." A cool breeze passed by, carrying the scent of fresh grass and hope. Ethan looked at the sky and smiled. He knew this was just the beginning, not the end. His journey from a poor boy collecting trash to a man building a better world had just begun. And every time someone asked about his success, he always said the same thing. It started with a trash bag, a promise, and a mother who never stopped believing in me. Sparkle's moral of the story: no dream is too big when your heart is honest and your reason is love. Hard work may be slow, but one day it always shines.